Howdy gang. Today we'll be going over a player guide for my mod Vanilla Matter, or just simply VMD. There are a lot of systems that, while meant to make sense from an in-character perspective, are ultimately numerous and sometimes fairly weird. I'll leave some timestamps in the description, but for now let's get cruising. First up, let's start with some quality of life changes. Similar to what many mods have done prior, if you look at an activatable item on the ground with an empty hand and press left mouse, you'll activate it without first picking it up. This is handy in VMD for eating food on the go, and is an essential tip for getting by. In the inventory menu, you can click and drag items over other items to move the items being dragged into whatever slots are open, including the slots occupied by the item you're dragging around. Thanks to some code from the marquee, you can even swap items of mismatched sizes. Watch me swap a Gepgun with an entire damned bushel of items all at once. Neat, right? Speaking of inventory management, there's another great trick you can combine with the former for maximum effect. That is to say, you can rotate items. Don't worry too much though. If you try to grab an item and it would only fit when rotated in your inventory, the game will try to fit it both ways when picking it up. Consider this the manual mode then. While dragging an item, simply push R and it will toggle between being placed long or being placed tall. Now watch as I grab a flamethrower, spin it, and swap it out with a handful of other items. Easy peasy. While in the inventory, you can also right-click an activatable item in order to use it, or, as of Phase 1.5, equip a lockpick, multi-tool, or weapon. Middle-clicking an item, or dragging it out of the inventory, will drop it on the ground. These two tips can also save a ton of time with inventory management. Let's talk about bypassing real quick. So, new to the concept of using multi-tools and lockpicks, henceforth referred to as bypassing, is the rush mechanic. Bypassing takes longer to do than it did in vanilla, but is still based only on line of sight. However, by double-clicking to bypass instead of single-clicking, you enter rush mode. Rushing is meant to be used when either nobody is around, or when the rushed attempt would defeat the object that you are attempting to bypass. Specifically, if your rush attempt does not finish the item being bypassed by bringing the object's strength to 0, it produces a large sound that NPCs nearby can hear, and will likely get them upset about if they would already hate the use of lockpicks or multi-tools to begin with. For this trade-off, rushing occurs substantially faster than bypassing in the vanilla game. If you want to blow through devices very quickly, I would highly recommend investing more into the skill, so you can finish things with a rush faster, and with select talents, sometimes even quieter if you do perform an incomplete rush. Next, let's talk about some new systems that were thrown in. I'll try to keep it brief. Bear in mind, though, that you can configure all the following systems in the VMD options menu. First we have the smell system. The smell system adds a risk of being detected if you carry too much food, or have been near too many dead bodies recently. Food smell maintains as long as you're carrying too much food, so try to keep the smell small if not removed entirely. Blood smell, meanwhile, is temporary, but builds up fairly easily if you're killing people a lot. Consider non-lethal takedowns or not fighting to reduce this, but don't step in dead bodies or gibs to prevent this further. If you get covered in blood and need a quick fix, look for showers, sinks, water fountains, or other bodies of water to wash it off quickly. You'd be surprised how common it is to actually find at least one of these. Bear in mind, though, if you get covered in too much blood, you also attract outside attention for suspicious parties. Why yes, officer, I was just walking through the market when, bam, a bucket of blood hit me in the face. What do you mean I look suspicious? Oh no. If you have problems with managing smell thresholds, look into the cover-up talent from the infiltration skill tree. Next up we have stress. Now, stress is a tricky one, as a lot of features will add to it. As a creature of the night, being ducked low, in darkness, or straight up enjoying fun substances will all reduce stress immediately. Additionally, getting pharmacist from the medicine talents list will also make medkits reduce stress greatly. Being well fed, well charged, and in good health all reduce stress issues over time. Things that increase stress primarily includes taking damage and being damaged long term, but by being surrounded by many enemies, especially robots or transgenics, will also keep you on edge. Once again, consider not always taking the combat approach to limit how often you run into these issues. Knowing when to dodge a fight really pays off in VMD. Next up we have hunger. Hunger is pretty basic. Various foods give various levels of smell, but also provide various levels of hunger restoration. Small drinks and water fountains / coolers will only give 1 hunger unit back. Candy bars in large drinks will give 2 hunger back. Finally, soy food will give 4 units of hunger back. You can go quite a while without food, so carrying a ton on you isn't always necessary, unless you're expecting the mission to be a long one. Once again, consider cover-up to reduce smell thresholds for food further. And as a bonus tip, you can use the combat knife to consume pieces of dead animals lying around, but it'll get you messy and won't be a fun experience for your character. Yes, the combat knife actually has a use now. How about that? Up next we have status effects. These trigger when select items are used. Soda cans will increase your aim focus speeds, but make you more susceptible to stress while the buff is active. Candy bars will keep you well energized and will increase your run speeds by about 15% for a very short while after. Booze has the unwritten side effect of debuffing aim and sensory clarity, but massively reducing stress both immediately and for a while after consumption. Additionally, its drug effect now takes longer to stack up, making it more practical to use in real-world scenarios. Cigarettes have a buff that also reduces stress, both immediately and while their buff is active. Additionally, cigarettes do less immediate damage now. Cigarettes and soda aren't a bad combo for combat efficiency, in fact. Finally, Zyme does... well, a lot of stuff. You'll hallucinate and have massively reduced stress. But curiously, you're so doped out you'll actually be able to shrug off most wounds, and even resist some damage you took prior. Be advised, however, that once you trash, that Zyme will make you take a solid hit to the cardio system, so if you're on death's door when it wears off, your wounds are going to catch up with you. Speaking of which, and lastly, we have substance addiction. Cigarettes, booze, and even Zyme all have their benefits, even if some trade-offs exist along the way. The biggest trade-off, however, is the potential to both overdose and be addicted. By default, you can only be addicted to these three substances. Cigarettes have no ability to overdose in exchange for immediate damage, but are fairly addicting, so use them in moderation. Please? Alcohol is by far the least addicting substance, but if you binge drink, you're going to get alcohol poisoning and end up in trouble. This is hard to do though, so just don't go hog wild. Finally, Zyme is both very easy to overdose on and very easy to get addicted to. Just one hit of Zyme can keep you hooked for a while. However, if you stay clean and stay clear of a substance you're addicted to, you can beat your addiction until further notice. Withdrawal effects will chase you down, however, so expect a wicked hangover, trouble focusing, or just having your brain scrambled depending on what's gnawing at your leg. Don't get mad at me if your Zyme use has a long-lasting impact on your life. Oh, and one more bonus round before we move on. As the game is 21 years old at the time of making, I'm going to assume everyone knows the kill switch is a thing. When the section of the game begins, you'll be on the clock for real, so try to keep a move on. Higher difficulties will make it tick even faster. While there is a damage gate to stop you from taking more than 95 damage from being shot per frame of the game, this won't matter as your health slims down to only 15 each limb. Medkits will also become less effective, and you'll be denied use of your AUGs. Avoid using biocells, as they'll only power your AUGs for a brief window, and the extra energy afforded to your nanites will let them tear you up more than usual. If the kill switch carries on too far, you'll begin suffering debilitating effects, starting small and increasing in severity over time. If you start seeing any weird effects from your kill switch, hustle, 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 because once that timer caps out, forget being weakened, you'll be dead. Of course, that too is configurable, so if that's just not for you, you can flick it off. No worries, I won't take away your gamer card. So, finally, we have to approach the talent system. When skills are leveling up, you'll be given some talent points to spend accordingly. On new games, you can pick 2 specializations if you go with a custom class, but don't be afraid to use the premates. I've used them all and they're quite viable. Your 2 specializations will allow you to upgrade skills for cheaper and get access to talent points and talents faster on top of that. There's a lot to choose from, so I'll just skim over some of the ones I recommend for new players or just in general. All of them are viable, but some of them work better than others. For pistols and rifles, all of them are viable, but I recommend going for pistol/rifle modularity if you're only going to upgrade those skills a little bit, so mods can compensate for a lack of raw marksmanship. But go for pistol/rifle focus if you're aiming for advanced or higher. Even at just level 1 though, it's pretty helpful. Heavy weapons benefit heavily from heavy posture for show off. Ever wanted to use that GEP gun or flamethrower without feeling weighed down too much? These will help out quite a lot with that. You'll be quite agile with them, in fact, making maining heavy weapons much more viable. Demolitions, meanwhile, has a few things to pick. Frequency tuning is good if you want more time to defuse grenades. It's an absolute dream at advanced or master level. However, more than that, I'd recommend rushing into grenade pouch to get your max grenade count up to 10 instead of 5. For the extra mile, somewhere mid to late game, having carry on after that will greatly increase your playtime with grenades, as they're quite difficult to loot from enemies otherwise. If you're a veteran though, and you just want a new way to use proximity mines, Bumble No More lets you put grenades on floors and ceilings in addition to placing grenades faster than ever. While not good in terms of raw stats, sometimes a little cunning goes a long way. Pretty much anything for melee is a fair pick, to be honest. For infiltration, previously known as lockpicking, cover up is a great one, as mentioned prior. However, just as good is pickpocket, so you can fish keys and other items out of enemies' pants without them noticing. It opens some serious doors, and yes, literally give them the chance. Excellent for stealth players. Just don't get caught. If they look at you, you're going to be in trouble. For electronics, IFF Override is quite fun for turning turrets on your enemies. Works great at high skill levels especially. Also, a good one for at least advanced skill level is Silent Mode, greatly increasing how often you can rush hacks. However, for train level, getting Codebreaker is quite nice for just bypassing some annoying keypads in a pinch. For environmental training, now known as tactical gear, Off Switch is great for making a single pickup last longer, but Insulation is good for stockpiling goodies. Either specializing in Enviro or getting to Advanced will let you get both, which I highly recommend given the skill's increase in consistency. For medicine, pharmacist is really good for low-level medicine, given its battery of effects. But medical waste is great for advanced or master levels, since you can heal an arm and your head in the same medkit, or whatever weird needs you find yourself having. Finally, for swimming, I highly recommend Fit as a Fiddle, with a swimming specialization. You can get this at just trained level. It allows you to jump duck over small climbing puzzles, greatly increasing quality of life for navigating terrain, especially for you Zoomers. Seriously, no hate though, I have a friend who self-identifies as a Zoomer, and he absolutely loves Fit as a Fiddle. Later on, it pairs well with Fall Roll and Tactical Roll, allowing you to be seriously mobile on the field. Yes, the rumors are true. Swimming is no longer a trap skill. Update. As a quick errata, I also forgot to mention computers. Oops. For computers, I would highly suggest Deepfake for use with story-related computers, so you can activate special options. However, WizKid is also quite nice, allowing you to download emails and stay in a computer for longer. If possible, picking a specialization in computers will let you get both at only trained level. However, upgrading the skill to advanced without a specialization will do the same thing, in addition to allowing you to hack for even longer. Oh yes, and one more thing before I forget. The assault gun can have its firing mode change between burst fire and semi-automatic. To do this, simply press the scope button with it in hand. In Phase 2, this will be overhauled. An actual change fire mode button will be assigned to the P key by default. Alright, that wraps up our video for now. I hope you find some of this player guide useful and answers a lot of common questions I've had. I know we certainly need a new tutorial to explain some of these things better in the scope of the game, but being the 21st century, I like to prefer the means of online communication as an optional component. Adds a little more mystery to things, I think. But anyways, I'll let you all go. Have a great time, and if you have more questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks.